Hello. Hello, class. Shall we move?
Yes, we can.
We can move. Mama?
Yes. Mr. Foreman,
Yes, Mama. Hi there.
I'm okay, alhamdulillah.
Okay. Brigadier General has given us the green light. Yankuba driver. So we'll go ahead.
Yeah, okay, no problem then.
Okay. So, right. If you can see my slide, I am proposing us to have some class. Please don't go against it. If you go against it, you'll be alone because I think some students were saying that the credit that's available for online class is going to expire by end of January. So as such, we need to, try our best to ensure that we complete the syllabus. Okay. We have two main topics, and those topics are accounting for short-term decision making and investment appraisals. So I am sure if we have between 5 to 6 classes, we'll be able to cover both topics. So because of that, today I want us to go up to 6, right? So we're going to go up to 5, then we have a break for 15 minutes for the prayers, then we come back for another 45 minutes. On Saturday, tomorrow, inshallah, I'm coming to the office, so I want us to have class from 12 to 3 p.m. And then on Thursday, that's next week Thursday, after work, between 5 and 7, I want us to have another class. Then Friday, which is our normal class, we can do 3 to 6 again. And then on Saturday, 12 to 3 p.m. I'm sure with your cooperation, we should be able to finish the syllabus after these 5 classes. Okay? Is that okay, everyone? Okay?
Mr. Fafana.
Yes.
Mr. Fafana.
Yes, sir.
For us too, we have a pending class too with Mr. Jada, which is on Saturdays from 11 to 1. So I don't know which will also start next week.
It will start next week.
Yeah.
But not tomorrow, yeah?
Yes. On ethics and
okay. Let's do tomorrow. Let's do tomorrow. Then next week, maybe we can start immediately after your class. Okay?
Okay, that will be fine.
Right. Any other observations? Okay, so this is what we agreed. Then let's proceed. Like I said, today we are going to start accounting for short-term decision making. Okay, accounting for short-term decision making. Then after completing that, we'll do investment appraisals, which will be our last main topic. Okay. So under accounting for short-term decision making, we're going to look at these topics. We'll look at an introduction. Okay, and then the first topic we will look at will be contribution analysis. Okay, what is a contribution? How useful is contribution analysis for short-term decision making? We're going to look at make or buy decision. Do we make a product internally, or do we source it from an external supplier? Okay, what prudent business decisions should we take? Okay, we're going to look at, of course, questions on make or buy decision. We'll look at other important factors to consider before we make or buy a product. Then we will look at shutdown or a discontinuance decision. Do we shut down a business operation, a business department, a product line, or do we continue with it? What are the short-term financial implications of shutting it down or continuing with it? So we're going to look at that. Of course, some questions on it. Then there's a little question that you're going to do as an assignment on that. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at. For today, if time permits us, we're going to move to other topics. Okay. So when we talk about accounting for short-term decision making, what are we actually referring to? Accounting for short-term decision making. What are we actually referring to?
I think those are information that are recently published to make our decision within 1 year or less than that.
Okay, so the first thing we take note of is when you talk about short term in accounting and in financial management, you are talking about a period up to 1 year. Okay, any period exceeding 1 year is considered as long term in accounting. Okay, so short term decision making will mean decision making that will have to be taken within 1 year. Okay, so as accountants, especially as management accountants, our main function is to advise management in order to take useful and beneficial decisions. Okay, how do we do that? We do that by considering all the factors, by considering the financial implication of decisions. So when we talk of short-term decision making, we look at financial implication of decisions within 1 year. Okay, so it's really, really important to take note of that. Our main role as accountants is to help management in decision making. Okay, so what is decision making? Decision making, of course, is the choice between two or more alternatives. Okay, management is going to decide whether to go ahead with one project or to go ahead with a couple of projects out of many options, or is going to go ahead with only one because that the projects are mutually exclusive. So those are some of the choices or alternatives management have to, choose between. Okay, so that's what we call short-term decision. Okay, so decision making, of course, is the most important function of management of any organization. Very, very important. We got to take decisions. Even at home, we take decisions, whether formal or informal. Okay. In the house, on a daily basis, we got to decide, maybe the wife, most probably, or the wife with the husband, or even the wife with the kids together will have to decide, for example, what to cook for the day. Are they going to cook benachin, or they're going to cook durango, or what are they going to cook? So those are, decisions that are usually taken at household level, even though they are informal. Okay, and of course, every decision has got a financial implication. For example, if you say we're going to cook benachin, and of course, if you're going to cook yankatango, there will be different financial implications. We know, of course, if you're going to cook benachin, it's a lot more expensive than if you have to cook, nyankatang and stuff. Okay? So, management's ultimate goal, ultimate role is to take decisions. Very, very important. And it is us, accountants, who help them to take decisions. So this tells you that as an accountant, your role is very, very, very important. So don't limit your role to be behind the computer or to be behind the calculator pushing numbers. Those numbers have to have an impact on the overall decision-making of the organization, okay? So don't limit yourself to number crunching, okay? Be a decision maker. Be a decision, of course, advisor, okay? Really, really important, okay? So, of course, any decision management takes has to be in the best interest of the organization, which must result in, for example, cost reduction, revenue maximization, and of course, which has to lead to profitability. Profitability is, of course, the ultimate goal of every organization. Okay, that's organizations that are into, making profits, because not every organization is into maximizing profits. Okay, so decisions must be taken, and of course, must be taken by management. And when taking decisions, we must put the interest of the organization first, and all decisions must result to cost reduction, revenue maximization, and of course, improvement of profitability. Very, very important. Okay, so managerial decision making, as you can see, managerial decision making, cost accounting information is often used for management. Short-term decision making involves 5 steps. Okay, first we have to define the problem when we are taking decisions. Before you make any decision, of course, you have to know your problem. You have to know the problem in hand. Okay, define problem, identify, of course, alternatives, options. You collect relevant information on alternatives. That's where accountants will come in. Okay, we will collect relevant information on the alternatives. We do some calculations, we do some analysis, and then we will advise the management to select between the preferred alternatives. And of course, the decisions will be, made by management. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we look at is contribution analysis. What is contribution? What is contribution, class?
Contribution in simple English is to take part.
Is to take part, to contribute.
Is to take part in something.
Okay, good. But what about in accounting, Dumbuya? That's a nice definition, to take part. Yes, that is a good one, yes. But we are not into simple English now. We are into complex accounting.
Mr. Fofan.
Yes.
I think that it is the excess of
Can I come in, sir?
Sorry, Omar is talking now. Omar, yes?
This
I think it is the
amount
excess of revenue over fixed costs.
It is the excess of revenue
Over fixed costs.
over fixed cost.
Yeah.
Okay. Excess of revenue over fixed cost. Can you, open that up a bit?
Okay, can I comment, sir?
Raji, you want to come in? Singata?
Yeah.
Come in?
Yeah, it is the how would I put it? Like, it is the difference between the variable cost and sales before the.
Okay, so it is the difference simply, in its simplest term, contribution is the difference between sales revenue and marginal cost. Okay, so contribution, in other words, is the profit before considering fixed costs. Okay, I think that's what you wanted to say, Umar, yeah? So contribution is the profit before consideration of fixed cost. So it is the difference between sales revenue and variable cost.
Sorry,
Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, I just made a mistake. I think it is the excess of revenue over variable cost.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Okay? Or the profit available before considering fixed cost. Simple. Okay? As you can see here, of course, why do we exclude fixed costs from contribution analysis? Is simply fixed costs are everybody's business. They are costs that are not directly attributable to any product or department, okay? Whilst sales revenue is, of course, you can trace it to particular products, you can trace it to particular departments, and of course, variable costs, you can, of course, trace it to variable, you can trace it into various product services or departments, okay? Whilst fixed costs, especially sunk fixed costs, is everybody's business. It relates to the organization as a whole. So as such, it is not considered when we are taking decisions. So contribution analysis is a very, very, very important tool when we are taking short-term decision making, because just like I said, contribution is calculated by considering sales revenue and a variable cost. Sales revenue and variable costs are all attributes that vary with the activity level. They vary with sales quantity and production quantity, okay? While fixed cost is usually fixed, irrespective of whether you produce and whether you produce and sold more quantities of a particular product or not. Okay, so it's the simplest example is if you sign a rent contract for your factory, okay, you sign for 5 years, for example, every year you're supposed to pay 100,000, okay, as your rent. Does the landlord wants to know whether you produce 100 units or 1,000 units of your product? Is he interested? Is the landlord interested?
No.
No.
He is not interested. He doesn't care. What he cares is he has signed an agreement with you to pay him 100,000 per annum. Whether you make 1 million or you make only $100 per annum is your problem. So rent is a fixed cost. It does not change with activity level. It does not change with sales quantity. Neither does it change with production quantity. Okay, so take note of that. So this is why we use contribution analysis most when we are taking short-term decision making, because it ignores the fixed element of cost. Okay? So the next topic we're going to look at on the make or buy decision, on the short-term decision making, is the make or buy decision. Okay.
Sorry,
What
Mr.
are we talking about when we say make or buy decision? Yes, somebody wants to talk?
Yes, like you said that, like for the short-term decision making, they normally consider the contribution.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, contribution, like it is the revenue over the variable cost, and
Yes.
those items are day-to-day activities of the business. But
Yes.
for this one, like for the fixed cost, you know,
Yes.
that one, it is a long-term purchase. I can say.
Fixed cost?
Yeah, you know, fixed cost is something that that lasts for more than 1 year.
No, Omar, not necessarily. You can have some fixed costs. You can have some fixed costs that may be monthly. For example, your electricity bill is a fixed cost, because your electricity bill does not, simply, I mean, just put it this way, don't know any other thing. It's simple. If you have any cost, you want to say whether this cost is a fixed cost or variable cost. You have to ask yourself one question. This cost, does it increase or decrease when I produce more or less? If you produce more, if the cost increase with that, then it is a variable cost. If you produce less, if the cost decrease as a result of your production, then it is a how to call it? It's a variable cost. Electricity, to some extent, can be a step, a semi-variable cost. Okay, it can be semi-variable. The reason why we categorize it under fixed, because, for example, if you hired a factory, the factory will not only consist of the production unit. It will have the finance department. It will have the admin department. Okay, it will have the HR. It will have other departments. So electricity costs of the finance department and HR department and other support departments don't vary with production activity. So that's why, to a large extent, costs like electricity are classified as fixed, but they can be semi-variable. They can be part fixed and part variable. Is that clear, Omar?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Okay. Shall we move? So when we talk about the make or buy decision, what are we talking about? The make or buy decision.
So can I try?
Yes, you can.
Like in MA1, like make or buy, you normally try to analyze, like when you make the product or when you buy it in the market, which one is more reasonable. Sometimes you can also consider the quality, or things like that.
Okay. Yeah, something very similar to that. When we are taking decisions, for example, if a customer places an order, okay, and said, let's say it's a printing company, and said, I want you to print 1,000 books for me, okay? And then, you as the management accountant is responsible for doing the costing and advising, okay? So you do your calculations. If we make in this sense means if we print these books in-house, what will be the relevant cost? In other words, what will be the marginal cost? Okay? And then you go and do your homework, you contact some printers in town, that does almost similar work with you, and then you try to obtain a quote for them. If they have to print one book for you, how much is going to cost? So that quotation you're going to get from the printers, from an outside printer, will be the marginal cost of printing, the marginal purchase price. Okay? The marginal cost of making will be what is going to cost you when you make it in-house. So now you have to advise management either to make that book in-house, to print it in-house, or to print it from an outside printer based on marginal profitability. So you consider marginal cost of making versus marginal cost of buying. Marginal cost of making is the cost that's going to cost, the amount is going to cost you in terms of variable cost when you make the book, like, for example, the book, the paper, the ink, and the cost for printers, the printers who are going to, the lithographers who are going to make the how to call it, the plates before they do the printing and so on and so forth. So you need to put all those considerations, all those costs, the variable elements, and then, of course, the variable element of buying will be what an outsider will charge you. So you compare those two costs, then based on the information you are able to gather, you'll be able to advise management. So for example, if it is cheaper to print the books from an outsider, then you advise management to print it. But then there will be some other factors that you need to consider, because in any decision making, you don't only look at the financial factors, but you look at the non-financial factors. We're going to look at them, okay? So that's what a make or buy decision is all about, okay? So when we are taking make or buy decision, of course, we ignore absorbed fixed costs, okay? And general fixed costs, we how to call it? We don't consider them. But then when the fixed cost is directly attributable to the product, that is, you can trace it to the product, then you have to consider it because it is a relevant fixed cost, okay? So the decision rule will always be you compare the marginal cost of making to the purchase price, which is the marginal cost of buying, and then you always go for the cheaper one. But then in your advice, you have to indicate the non-financial elements, okay? It is cheaper to produce these books, but then what's going to happen is if we produce this book, we are going to have spare capacity. That's our printers will be there, they won't be doing anything, and we still have to pay our printers. So if you calculate all those factors, it may be in fact more expensive. So you look at the non-financial bits as well, okay? Right, so let's look at one or two questions on this. Think about 3 questions, then we move to the next topic, right? So let's look at the first one, which is Claimants Limited. Okay, Claimants Limited. So I'm going to go and open a Google Sheet. We're going to use the Google Sheet to answer this question. Okay, is that okay, everybody?
Yes, Mr. Fofana. Mr. Fofana, I think you said that, like, in the case of the fixed cost, you have to determine whether it is a relevant cost or not. If it is a relevant cost, you are going to consider it when you are doing, when you are making the product in-house.
Yes.
But if it is not relevant, in that case, you should disregard.
Exactly. So the only time you should take cognizant of fixed cost is when it's a directly attributable fixed cost. It's a fixed cost which you can trace to a particular product. But if it is a general fixed cost or a general manufacturing fixed cost, then you don't consider it because it is everybody's business. It cannot be traced to any product. Okay? Excellent. So please screenshot this question. We're going to use it to answer. You know, we're going to use, so I cannot project 2 screens at the same time. So just screenshot this so that we can be referring to it when we are doing our answer. Okay. So I just go and open a new, where are we? Okay, new Google Sheet. So before that, let me just stop this recording. Otherwise it becomes too long.